It's time to start talking about JoJo. Um, Obviously, I'm doing this a little bit later than most people, but I think it's not the worst thing in the world because more information has come out, more people have talked about it. Thorin just released a video. I think Dark Respawn made a video. Like LS talked about it. There's been a lot of information that's come out, and so I think it's not a bad time. I don't know that we'll get more information in the future, but we'll wait and see. And I'd like to start from the very beginning. When the news happened that JoJo got fired, my first question was like, why is Dom releasing this? Why is it not Sheep Esports? Why is it not someone else? Well, the answer is why it's not Sheep Esports is because clearly Dom has much better sources than what the Pokemon are able to get, right? Clearly the source is someone on Cloud9. Now, the first question I asked was why would Dom do this? And the answer I was given, or the answer people seem to, the people I was discussing this with, multiple people have told me, oh, it's like, look at how many views he got. And that just doesn't make any sense to me because he could have done a lot of this kind of journalistic stuff for views, but he doesn't. So I don't think it's for the views, although the views are very nice. And I suspected that it was Cloud9 that gave him the information because they didn't want to be the ones to do it. Because if you go publicly as a Cloud9 and say, hey, the reason we fired him is because of ABC, then I don't know, maybe they can start a public feud. But if you don't say anything and JoJo doesn't say anything, then all of a sudden, like, you can keep things under quiet, and then the reason is like put out by leaks, really. And I was told that doesn't make sense by a few people, right? They're like, no, Cloud9 doesn't stand to benefit because that lowers JoJo's value. And if they have a contract and they're trying to sell him, and I think Thorin hinted at this too, but like they're trying to send him to EU, if they were trying to do that, they probably don't want that information coming out right now. They want it coming out later. And so, like, was it actually Cloud9 wanting him to do it, or did he like do it himself? I don't know. My suspicion is that he wouldn't have done this if he didn't get the green light from Cloud9. Or, no, if Cloud9 didn't, or if someone, I'm not going to say it's from Cloud9, or I don't think it could be from JoJo Pyun's, like, side. It just makes no sense. Yeah, if someone didn't want him to do it. So I think that there's, like, a benefit going on there. And I can see people who are like, no, Dom wouldn't do that, because, like, he used to be a player, and, like, technically he's screwing over a player, right? And he's helping an organization do something that, if he was on the receiving end, wouldn't want to receive it. And like, Dom's generally known to be, people disagree with him whether they like this character or not, but overall, like, he's not the type of person that goes around screwing over people, right, for fun. So there, I'm not gonna say he did it, I'm not gonna say he didn't, because I don't know. But that was the first question that I had. The second question I had is like, what do you mean by late, right? JoJo Pyun was fired because he was late 43 times after they started tracking, right? So like they started tracking it at some point. Clearly they talked to him about it or something like that. I think Thorin had mentioned that he had been fined beforehand. What were the nature of those being late? Because that's very important. If he was late because of what people were saying, is like, oh, he has stomach issues, which is completely hypothesized. We haven't seen anywhere where someone was like, JoJo has like actively said that from his teammates or coaches. No one has said that. But they all hinted at it by not addressing the fact that JoJo Pyun is late. They almost never said like, oh, if he's late, then he's late. Everyone was responding like, oh, JoJo has great work ethic. But that wasn't the issue, right? That was one of the things that was brought up. Was like, oh, if he can't manage his times, he has bad work ethic. And everyone's like, no, he can be late for other reasons, right? But he has great work ethic, and he puts in more hours, right? But it's not about how many hours you put in. It's not about whether you have good work ethic or not. It's like, I guess that's one of the things, but you haven't responded to the allegations of him being late. Almost no one did. And then there's the deleted Rigby tweet, which is like explicitly mentioned the fact that he would bring him in and have him use the bathroom immediately as soon as he got in, and that makes people suspect like, oh, maybe he takes a very long time in the bathroom. Why would he do that? Maybe he has stomach issues. Like, who knows, right? I'm not gonna like think about that too much or speculate on that, but a lot of people are attacking JoJo and saying like, oh, he's lazy and a talent sucks, yada yada yada. we don't know the nature. Like, was it that he was 1 to 2 minutes late each time? Was that what was counting? I think Thorn did like a whole like thought experiment of like, if he's late multiple times in a day, do you count that as once or do you count that as multiple infractions? Like, there's this whole different thing. I don't even want to get into that. I actually think like you probably, even if you don't like Thorn, I think you should just listen to what he said and just because he kind of goes chronologically and actually goes through people's tweets, which is very nice. I don't have the capability of doing that here right now on this laptop while I'm traveling in a hotel room. Otherwise, I would try to be a little bit more diligent and show you guys like tweets and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot that's going on here, and one, what do you mean by late? Two, how often? Like, how do you justify 43? Where does that number come from? Is it like, oh, you were 1 minute late and then you went to go get coffee for someone and then you, like, it should have taken 5 minutes but it took you 10 minutes? Like, yeah, what are these late infractions? And then it's like, did you fine him for it? Did you punish him? Because like Kelsey Moser was saying, like every single LCS team has a thing where if you're late, you have to buy everyone coffee. Well, if he was already being punished for coffee, firing him instead of like, did you let him know that this was a big issue? Did you talk to him? The other thing is like, if he had stomach issues, how many of those late were because of his stomach issues, and how many of those were like, you think he was using his stomach issues as an excuse, or it wasn't a stomach issue, but maybe the reason Travis Gafford, his video is like, oh, JoJo's team is going to like argue, and they're going to like say that no, it was an unjustifiable firing. Maybe because like, oh, it was because of stomach issues, and Cloud9 saying no, actually it wasn't because of stomach issue. So it becomes like when they say like he was late to team meetings, he was late to scrims. What was maybe he was late, right? But what was the cause for being late? Was it a justifiable reason? Was it unjustifiable? There's just so much that goes around, right? Maybe, yeah, there's a lot to speculate. I'm not necessarily in the business of speculating. I'm in the business of asking questions, right? And it's like, oh, we don't actually have that detail. Oh, we don't have that detail either, right? And so I think there are a lot of details that we're missing. But there's another group of people who are just completely bashing on Cloud9. And I can see why they might do that. But I think Peter Dunn said this, that if you're late 5 times, that's on you. That's on the player. If you're late 43 times, I feel like there's responsibility on the org. And sure, there might be responsibility on the org. Oh, I saw this a lot. It's like, oh, just bench JoJo. Like, if they had an academy team, you could have just benched JoJo. Like, while I think I understand what you're saying, I don't know that was, like, viable. Just because JoJo isn't, like, Thanatos. He's not Falcon. He's the person first of all, you spent all this money on JoJo, so you don't even have the opportunity to do that because you spent all that money on JoJo, right? Allegedly $750,000 most paid player, like probably more than some rosters combined. So yeah, it's difficult to bench a player, especially in summer. Like, they went 6-1, right? It's hard to be like, we're gonna bench this player, kind of like what Striker did with Adam. It's hard to do that because it's working, right? And hey, suck it up. JoJo's playing fine. We're winning games. If this is what's going to take us to Worlds, because we really don't want a bad performance and miss out on Worlds. Surely we're not going to miss out on Worlds. The only way we miss out on Worlds is if we bench our star player who's being paid. Also, his contract, maybe a lot of that money is like guaranteed. So if you bench him and he's supposed to take a lesser salary, right? Maybe you can justify then getting someone else. But if his salary is guaranteed, or maybe he has a clause where he has to guaranteed starting. The only person I know who has that is Froggen, which is like public. Back when he was playing, he had a guaranteed like starting clause. I don't know that JoJo would have that, but who knows, right? So there's a lot of stuff. Also creating drama between the team, like having a different. Yeah, there could be many reasons. Like Berserker came back to Cloud9 because he wanted to play with JoJo Pyun. And all of a sudden you're telling me the JoJo Pyun is benched, and I have to play with the potato mid laner. By potato, I mean like a fresh mid laner that I don't know, or like someone who I don't want to play. Like, it can get very, very murky. So there's that as well. It gets very, very complicated. And what I will say is, after not making Worlds, LS, after they lost to 100 Thieves, LS went and said that on his live stream, it's all public, The VOD is probably still up. He's like, oh my god, Cloud9 have done something, a huge move. And then he did something where he's like, he kind of backtracked a little bit. And then he read someone from Cloud9 who gave him a quote that said that JoJo, Thanatos, and Berserker were all safe. And then afterwards he was like, oh, this was done right after the fight, like sort of implying that that's what he had heard immediately after they lost. So then it's like, oh, the person, he didn't want to leak it, so then the person who he was reading his quote was like actively misdirecting. Like, who knows what happened, right? It's very, very strange. Was this decision made just because JoJo was like late? No. They didn't make any international events. They didn't make it to any finals. This is the worst year for Cloud9. They didn't make it to single finals every single year in the LCS since they joined in 2013, that second split. They have made finals. This is the first year they don't even make finals. They didn't make a single international event. MSI is 2 teams. EWC, same as MSI actually, and then Worlds is 3 teams. Like, they didn't make us. They lost to 100 Thieves. No one before the season was saying that it was going to beat 100 Thieves. So there's a lot of reasons that Jack might not be happy that he's spending that much money on JoJo. So I think that's another factor that most people are forgetting. It's not just that he wants to get rid of that contract, that it's so much money, and he doesn't want to pay him for no reason when he's not giving him the results. And probably, like, you didn't get the sponsors that were supposed to be for Worlds, and so you don't have enough money. Like, you don't have the same money, so why are you paying this guy guaranteed money? Like, it just doesn't make sense, right? So you have a reason to fire him. I think Thorin made a good point where it's like, maybe they were tracking those infringes, English is hard, because they actually wanted to renegotiate JoJo's contract and be like, hey, you didn't give us any results, or like your results weren't as good, and you're always late, like, let's renegotiate our contract because like you're being paid too much and you're not giving us what we need. But yeah, after you don't make Worlds, you don't make either finals, you don't make MSI, you don't do anything, right? You finished worse. Last year you were 1st and 2nd in both the splits. This year you were 3rd and 4th. Like, come on, this was a super team, and this is what you get. That's just not acceptable. And you even made changes during the split to do better, and you ended up doing worse, right? You ended up finishing 4th to a perceived much weaker team. You finished higher in the standings. You basically only lost 1 best of 3, and then you didn't win a single best of 5. That's quite sad. So I understand the economic reasons, right? Get rid of that salary because it didn't pay nearly as much as it should have in terms of like accolades and in terms of probably sponsorships and stuff like that. Like, JoJo streamed once the entire year. So is that really enough to like for whatever sponsorship streams and stuff like that? Yeah, probably not. Who knows what the contracts were? Like, economically it makes sense, and just moving on with a player who didn't give you the results that you wanted to, and probably getting someone cheaper makes sense considering next year we're having less money. And also what I heard from Thorin was that he was trying to ship him over to EU. Makes a lot of sense, because I was speculating what team could he be on. I don't think Shopify is picking him up. I don't think any of the other top 3 teams, because 100 have Quid, and then you have Quad, and you have APA. I don't think those teams are getting rid of their mid laners. Then you have Shopify aren't getting rid of their mid laner. That leaves what? Cloud9 just got rid of him, so that only leaves Dignitas. Is JoJo going to Dig? And so it was very confusing. Or I was thinking about that, but maybe if he goes to EU, that makes a little bit more sense. Anyways, there's a lot of speculation going on. I think that there are some things we still don't know, right? Like, what were the reasons? Like, what were the times? What was the definition of being late? There's a lot of things that there's information that's missing, especially from JoJo's side. Like, does he actually have stomach issues, or does he not have stomach issues? Does Cloud9, what's Cloud9 definition of being late? Were they like just counting and not telling him? Were they finding him? There's so much that information that could either make Cloud9 look a lot worse, or JoJo look a lot worse, or maybe both of them to blame, or none of, like, there's something going on here, especially with, like, if it's true that Cloud9 decided to fire JoJo right after losing, that makes a little bit more sense. If it took a while, like, maybe I shouldn't speculate on that. But yeah, there's a lot of information that we don't necessarily have, but I do think that over the past few days we've gotten enough information to kind of get a bit of a picture of what was happening. Not necessarily all the details, but at least like a how do you say the word? A picture, maybe with not all the pixels, but a blurred out picture of what's going on. But yeah, those are my thoughts, and I'm curious to see what other information we're gonna get. And make no mistake, there was a reason I Will Dominate was the one to leak this. That was the first like big flag. Like, it was I Will Dominate. Sure, he got like 200,000 views or something on it, which is great for him. But the fact that he was the one to do it, you kind of have to ask yourself, why did he do it, and what could have motivated him besides the views? Yeah, those are my thoughts.